Rangers fans, welcome to Season 4 of Liberty Blue, the essential New York Rangers podcast powered by Believe Network and also powered by FanDuel. I'm Andrew Chelney alongside Nick Zararis. On this episode, we will get into the imminent roster teardown, the lack of effort from the guys on the ice, and what the future looks like for this team.
They've been a bad hockey team for like 6 weeks now. For a little while, there were hopes that they'd get out of the death spiral, that they weren't doomed. But with each passing day, each passing game, the effort has become optional. And I think it's really galling for the people who are giving that effort to be the ones after the game to say they're so disappointed with how the season is going. For JT Miller, who turns with the grace of a child at an open skate to be the one to say, we're really fucking disappointed, then do something about it, man. This is no different than what it was last year with Trocheck, 2 years ago with Trouba. If you really care that much, if you are that disappointed, you got to do something, man. Trouba, you know, for all of the complaining I did and how much I disliked his game, he did at least performatively throw his helmet and try and incite something here. The first time JT Miller shows some emotion this year will be the first time. We're not talking about, and that's what's so frustrating about all of the, he's going to drag us into the fight. Well, if you need a guy to drag you into the fight year after year after year, you have problems. You have organizational, philosophical intensity problems. And look, we've all known this for years, that this isn't exactly the 75 Flyers when it comes to character guys. Nobody out here is going to die for each other. No one out here is playing with the requisite intensity you would need to overcome the talent deficiencies, because that's the undercurrent of all of this. Yes, they lack leadership. Yes, they lack intensity. The team also is dreadful. You can talk about intangibles and leadership and all of the non-on-ice stuff to a degree, but when you're playing 7 or 8 AHL caliber guys in a lineup of 18 skaters, you're playing an AHL goalie and Spencer Martin. What does leadership mean if the other team only has 4 good players and they smoke you? You know, the Sharks aren't a wagon. They're in the playoff mix. Celebrini is having a Hart Trophy caliber season as a 19-year-old, but that's not a very talented team. You look at their defense, you look at their bottom 6, you should be able to put up 3 goals on the Sharks. I might even say win the game, but make it competitive, make it look like you want to be there.
And again, I've said this multiple times now, which I think just goes to show the bar, that like how far we've gone, like how low the bar is now, that Sam Carrick continues to be the only forward amongst the group that seemingly like cares. I know, you know, people like JT Miller and Trocheck and those guys can say that they care, but until I see it, like with Sam Carrick, I see it. I don't hear it from Sam Carrick, but I see it. I see him, right, fighting for those loose pucks and getting those dirty goals and trying to generate something. Anything would be nice. And Sam Carrick seemingly is one of the only forwards that likes to do that on a consistent basis. If I was a GM of a different team, I would be looking at Sam Carrick and being like, hey, like Sam is exactly the type of fourth line center that could be able to take a fourth line from an average, line to not only is this guy capable of creating something offensively, but also clearly he cares a lot. And he's somebody that could be a positive addition to a locker room. Sam Carrick is not playing first line minutes. He's not, and if he is, then there's been a horrible mistake. But as a fourth line center, he is proving how valuable he is / has become. And for me now, on multiple different occasions, watching these games and going, Sam Carrick is the best forward on this team. What is happening? That should send off so many red alerts, and yet here the Rangers are. It's January 26th, and nothing seems to be changing. It's still status quo. I wonder if we'll wait until the Olympics thing is still on, because by the way, and I want to, the Rangers have fallen so far out of not like the playoff mix that FanDuel has now removed the Rangers from making playoff odds and missing playoff odds. Like, that's how out of it they are. You can't even bet on the Rangers to miss the playoffs anymore. That's how embarrassing it is. By the way, it's January. We have like 3 months of this left.
So to reinforce the point you just made, so since December 1st, they're 22nd in scoring chances. They're 27th in shots on goal. They're 28th in goals. They're 25th in expected goals. They're 18th in high danger chances. They're 25th in shooting percentage. They're 24th in save percentage. That's a bottom 8 team. That's a lottery team over the last 6 to 8 weeks now. And Fox and Shesterkin, maybe another week or two, great. Fox, I know, can come back the last day before the Olympic break. Shesterkin could come back basically whenever he's ready. They both skated a handful of times. But at the same time, we saw what the team looked like with those guys. They were a 500 hockey team. And the thing that's so frustrating about this is more of the same. And last year, they tried. Last year, the general manager said, we can't keep the same group. Something's got to change. And he shook it up. He did. 3 of the 6 defensemen, they changed. They bring in JT Miller. They really did try. And at least last year, once JT Miller got here, the offense did tick up a little bit. The team was a smidge better offensively, even if the defense wasn't better. And they weren't this dead. They were not a good team last year from February to the end of the season, but they didn't have these 3 and 4 game stretches where Sam Carrick was the most noticeable player. Because that's the thing. Being noticeable doesn't necessarily mean you're playing well. But in the case of a team like this, where nobody seems to be playing well, it does correlate because he is keeping the game simple. And I do think when you're a team that is struggling to the degree the Rangers are, having the capacity to dumb it down and say, we're going to get the puck in deep, we're going to go get it, we're going to forecheck, and we're going to work the cycle. When your team is as dead as the Rangers are, that's welcome. That's really what you want. That's what we always talk about when a team is struggling. You got to simplify things. You got to crawl before you can walk, and you got to get there. Right now, this team can't do anything. You want them to string together 4 passes in a row to get 1 good scoring chance. It's just not going to happen. I mean, there was the stat, and I think it was Molly's story the other day. They've given up a goal 14 times in the first 3 minutes of a game, something ludicrous like that. And that comes down to leadership. That comes down to mentality. That's on preparation. That's on your coaching staff. If you guys are so disinterested in getting off to a good start, and what are they, 4 or 5? There's something 5-20-4 when the other team scores first. So 14 times we've let the other team score in the first 3 minutes of the game, and we've lost 24 of the 29 times that's happened. If that keeps happening over and over and over again, and we're not addressing it in any discernible way, that's a fundamental issue here. And we can talk about it. What do you want to do? I don't care. Something. It's got to be something. If you want to roll the 4th line out there to start the game, just so they send it in deep, just so they work the forecheck for 45 seconds so you don't concede first, fine. Whatever you need to do. Because this is unacceptable. It's one thing to be bad. It is another thing to be embarrassing. And right now, the Rangers are an embarrassing hockey team. And look, I get it. Spencer Martin's not an NHL goalie. He shouldn't be playing. Jonathan Quick can't make every start. You see what Quick start his numbers have been since Shesterkin went on IR. They don't have an NHL caliber goaltending right now. They have 5, 6 forwards who are good enough for consistent NHL minutes. This is a mash unit of a team. But at the same time, they don't want to give Scott Morrow more work. They don't really want to give Othmann that much more work. Perreault, I'm relatively happy with the workload he's getting, but you have options here. You can do things. You know, we can make examples out of people. And we know Vincent Trocheck or JT Miller aren't getting shifts skipped. We know Panarin's not getting his shifts skipped because they are so desperate for offense. They will tolerate this nonsense. And that's what it's come down to. We talked about this 2 years ago when Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafrenière were the best, one of the 5-6 best lines in hockey. We were tolerant of the fact that defense was bad because they were putting up so much offense. Now the Rangers are desperate for anything resembling offense. Their defense has continued to leak more and more as the years gone along. And there is nothing here that says it's changing. There is nothing about this group that inspires any confidence that they can change things, that they can turn this around. This is a matter of who gets sold off, who comes in to replace them, and do we actually play the guys we bring in to replace them? That's really the only question at this point.
So a couple of things here. I've been a very quiet last few weeks for the Igor is overpaid crowd. Been extremely quiet in my mentions about, oh, we don't need Shesterkin. Oh, like, oh, you don't need to pay the goalie so much money. It's like, guys, I hate to break, like, this is the alternative. And I understand that the defense hasn't been exactly helpful of whomstever is in it for the Rangers, but you are seeing some of the shots that are going in the net. And this is why if you have the opportunity to have one of the best goalies on the planet, you give him whatever he wants. And this is why. Goalies are able to steal games for you. They're able to make timely saves for you. And these are things that you pay top dollar for. When you don't slash, when your top dollar goalie is injured and cannot play, this is the result. Right, where there's people that are saying, "Oh yeah, like Jonathan Quick could be the starting goalie," but it's like be real, be serious for a second. You're watching this team now. You are having Jonathan Quick be the de facto starter while Shesterkin's out, and look at what's going on.
I think he's 0-6 with like an .870 save percentage since Shesterkin went on IR.
40.
Yeah,
Jonathan Quick is 40. He cannot do this. I really hope that we don't get comments for the foreseeable future, or people replying to you in your mentions or in my mentions about how this team could be better without Shesterkin. I do not want to hear it. This is like at that point you're just trolling. You watch this team and you're telling me that they don't need Shesterkin. Be real for a second. And on top of that, there was Patrick Waugh on the Islanders. He benched Matt Barzal. He benched him because the back-checking effort wasn't there. And he said something, I don't have the quote in front of me, but he said something along the lines of, back-checking doesn't, you don't need skill to back-check, you need effort. And he didn't have the effort, so he benched him. I would love to see that happen once on this team.
To anyone.
And I tweeted this a couple of days ago, I think it was the first goal that the Sharks scored, or maybe it was the second, I can't remember, but like JT Miller kind of just coasting and not defending anybody. And like the Sharks player that scored, it wasn't Miller's assignment, but the way Miller was playing that shift is very indicative of the problem that Nick and I and a lot of a growing number of fans and everybody else in the sports world in the hockey world are that's the problem that we're seeing and that we're having an issue with. Like, you are JT Miller, you are on the Olympics team, you're on Team USA. You're playing against the Sharks on a reeling team, and you're out there skating like you're with your family at Rockefeller Center, just out for a stroll. Like, how is that acceptable? Under no circumstances is that type of effort acceptable. And yet to see that, and then after the game here, our effort is unacceptable. Dog. Yeah,
but he used a bad word. He wanted to let us know how upset he was, so he used a bad word.
I can't. We have to find the person that did this. It's like, bro, like what? We're seeing what's going on. Like, you cannot hide.
We see you. He's Shaq hiding behind the tree.
We see you. You cannot hide on the ice. The camera sees everything. We see where you're at. We see where everybody's at. We see, the play developing in real time. We see you just kind of skating, not really defending anybody, and that leads to, a great A opportunity, and the Sharks capitalize. It's just very indicative of the overall problem with this team right now. And until a trade is made or something massive happens, this is going to continue until that breaking point. I would argue that we've seen multiple breaking points so far with this team this season alone. And yet through each breaking point, nothing seems to change. It's baffling.
No, and nothing's going to. My Islander fan friends have complained a lot that the last 2 years of Lou Lamoriello, it had a country club vibe where he didn't want to get rid of anybody. Everybody was friends with each other, and they weren't really pushing each other for that respect. There weren't really competitions for open roster spots. It was very much, these are the guys, and that's what the Rangers have right now, where you aren't fostering genuine competition. You have Scott Morrow, who may or may not be a piece for you going forward, and you refuse to use him over Braden Schneider, who has been an atrocity on the first pair with Gavrikov, a genuine atrocity. But we can't do that because X, Y, and Z. And you can't get a good explanation about it. GM still hasn't shown his face in public, by the way, which I'm waiting to see if that'll ever happen. But the thing
not for lack of effort, by the way. The Athletic people, everybody that covers the team has been trying. They've all been trying to get him, and they've just been denied.
Yeah, they know. The Rangers understand how this looks from the outside looking in. They don't care that we're all upset because very obviously they don't, but they understand how it looks. And the longer this festers, they got another game tonight against the Bruins, who the last time they played the Bruins massacred them, and we'll see how that goes. But the Rangers this year on home ice, they've been outscored 51-43 in the first, 49-42 in the second, 56-47 in the third. They have been getting obliterated. They have had some dreadful, dreadful home ice losses, and nothing changes. We can't even get symbolic things. Like you said, remember last year when John Cooper benched the Kucherov line for the entire third period of a game? And that's a team that's won 2 cups, and, Kucherov, one of the 5-10 best players of the era. And John Cooper has the authority and the respect to do that, and people don't question it. Look, I don't think Mike Sullivan's in here to, burn bridges or try and force people out. But you got to do something, man. I understand you had a different vision for what this season was going to be. You probably thought they were going to go to the playoffs this year. He probably thought they'd go to the playoffs, they'd maybe win around, and they would try and unwind their position, get a little bit younger as he, could foster what he wants his program to look like. But what am I supposed to realistically do here other than try and get my results through what we're talking about? You can change who plays with who. You can change how often guys play. You can change their special teams assignments. You have tools, and you're not using them. That's what's been frustrating about it from a Sullivan perspective. I understand he hasn't been given a lot to work with here. The team is very, very, very bad. The guys that are here that are supposed to be good aren't playing well. The guys like Panarin are on their way out. Then you have younger guys who you don't have a lot of trust in, but you don't really have a lot of choice other than to play in. And then back to your Shesterkin point real quick. There was an NFL coach back in the day when Peyton Manning was the Colts, where the backup quarterback had signed with them. And at one point he goes, "Coach, how come I don't get any reps during practice?" And he goes, "Well, if 18 gets hurt, we're fucked, and we don't practice fucked." So that's the way the Rangers need to look at it with Shesterkin going forward. You can talk all you want. I remember 10 years ago, we should keep Cam Talbot. They should trade Henrik Lundqvist. We should keep Antti Raanta. We should trade Henrik Lundqvist. You do not understand how hard this is. Shesterkin had Vezina-ish numbers, and this was barely a playoff team before he got knocked out, before he got injured. Can you imagine what league average goaltending would do to a fan base that has lost touch with reality of what goaltending is? I've heard this my entire life. Well, you can't pay too much for the goalie. Look, if you want to do that, that's fine, but you need the rest of the team to actually be good. Ranger fans have been spoiled for so long that we're used to the third and fourth lines kind of being nothing burgers and the third defensive pair being bad. But the goalie is so good, it makes up the difference. And then you get to a point in the playoffs where the goalie can't score too, so you lose ultimately. But you get league average 900 save percentage goaltending on this Rangers team in the near future. They're a lottery team. There's no ambiguity or question about it. And we said it last year. If you really wanted to, and that's why we were so adamant, hey, maybe don't trade for JT Miller, don't try and trade for pieces right now. If you're going to blow it up or restart, you can't have Shesterkin here because that's the problem now. If you're going to have Shesterkin come back from injury and he's going to drag you into a bunch of games, you're going to get to the dead zone. You're going to get to pick 12 to 15. And because the East is so bad, it's not implausible Shesterkin gets them right to the bubble of the playoffs. I know they're 7-8 points back now, but all it takes is a good week in this division, in this conference, and you're right back in it. So you have a lot of problems, and we're not really seeing any answers, and it's becoming self-defeatist. If nothing's going to change, why are we watching? Why are we going to games? Why am I going to pay $18 for a Bud Light if I'm going to watch them give up a goal in the first 3 minutes and spend the next 20 trying to find one? It should not be this hard, Ben. There is enough talent on this team that they should not be this bad. But the vibes are terrible. The morale is bad. Guys are playing hurt. And no one's coming to save them. We've been saying this for 2 months now. There is nobody on the horizon coming to save you.
We've been saying it for 2 years.
Yeah.
That there's just nothing that is going to come in, and there's like we said it last year. They traded for JT Miller, and he was a point a game player from when has it been a year?
It was January 28th.
Yeah, okay, so it's going to be a year here, a couple of days, and the Rangers didn't get better. JT Miller literally scored at least a point in every single game, on average, and the Rangers did not improve at all. So there's no player on the market right now that the Rangers could magically trade for, and all of this is fixed. This is the roots are rotten. You cannot, put some fairy dust on a tree and call it fixed when the tree itself is rotting and it's going to collapse within, a matter of weeks here. Like you can't, this is untenable. And unless you make multiple changes that alter the course of not just the roster, but the locker room vibe. Like you can't, all this no BS stuff and you're wearing all these shirts. That's great. What I'm seeing on the ice though is a whole lot of BS. And, it just goes back to show me, don't tell me. Don't tell me no BS. Show me no BS. You wouldn't have to wear the shirts if you went onto the ice and showed it instead. You can tell me whatever the hell you want, but you have to go out on the ice and actually do the things that you're telling me. Otherwise, it's just window service. You're not actually giving me what you keep promising. And when you break a promise once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, I'm not going to believe you anymore. No one is going to believe you. You have to prove it to the people that you broke those promises to. Hey, the 48th time, I'm for real. Like no one, you're the boy that cried wolf at that point. And you can't be surprised when people don't believe you. This is this is how far this team has fallen. It's gone from, back in 2014 and back in even 2012 and all these conference finals runs, even recently, no one was wearing no BS shirts. No one was doing that because they didn't have to. They were good teams that liked each other, that wanted to play for each other, that were, that actually generated some offense and, maybe even back checked every now and again. And they won games as a result. And they didn't need to tell everybody, oh, we're taking this seriously now. Like this, all this not like non-effort stuff that goes out the window. They didn't have to say any of that. They just went out there and did it. And right now it's the complete opposite, where there's, it's the SpongeBob meme of like when Plankton gets analyzed and it's like 1% evil, 99% hot gas. The Rangers right now are 1% show me, and 99% tell me. Like it's nothing. The Rangers right now are falling off the deep end, and until sweeping changes are made, this is just going to keep happening.
The way I would explain it, everything is so lacking. Professionalism is the word I would use to describe it. I mean, you can't keep losing in the exact same way over and over and over again, and nothing changes. And this gets to the root of something we've talked about forever. You can't look at, okay, the coach is different, that'll fix things. Okay, JT Miller, looking at one or two things as your solution, your wholesale, okay, we got this guy, that's going to fix everything, is why these problems keep getting worse. I have made the comparison on more than one occasion. They came out of that 21 season after the Tom Wilson thing and said, okay, we're not tough enough. And then brought in 4 guys who all were bad, but varying degrees of tough and gritty. Okay, got rid of all of them. Well, we can't score enough. Okay, here's Patrick Kane with 1 hip and Tarasenko, who was better, but still not a first-line caliber player because their stars themselves weren't good enough. You get to 24. The defense was leaky, but nobody wanted to admit it because they all liked Trouba for throwing his helmet because he was such a good guy. And tying it back to Trouba, tying it to Gaudreau, if the vibes are that bad because you got rid of two guys everybody liked. And we need Matt Rempe here because he pulls guys into the fight. And we need JT Miller here because we pull guys into the fight. Do you actually like your team? Like, do you actually like the guys you do have if you need to constantly be augmenting and supplementing? And look, we've heard the rumors, after the Devils series, it was I think it was Arthur Staples' athletic column. Yeah, the Rangers would trade Panarin if he would agree to be traded. They obviously tried to trade Zibanejad last year. That ultimately didn't go over well, to the point that Drury and Sullivan both went over to Sweden last summer to try and smooth things over. We know Chris Drury doesn't really like the group he has. We know he thinks they're soft, and that's why they need JT Miller, why they need Matt Rempe. And most of all, we know they're not good enough, so toughness and leadership don't really matter. It would be one thing, if you were the Lightning in 2019, where they lose in that first-round series to Columbus. If you looked around at that situation as Steve Yzerman and said, you know what, I think we got to fire John Cooper, I could understand that at least. We need to do something here. We know we're close, but we're not there yet. The Rangers are acting like they're close, and that's what's been so frustrating about the last year and a half. It would be one thing if after 2024 he said, okay, we need to shake things up. We're going to get Trouba out of here. We're going to get Gaudreau out of here. We're going to try and get more mobile on defense. We're going to try and get better puck movers back there. But they tried to put the toothpaste back in the tube because Chris Drury knows everything about hockey and I can manage this. And then very quickly he saw it go off the rails, and they made the series of trades they did last year to try and salvage the season. And you are looking at the repercussions of constantly trying to salvage things. Eventually in battlefield medicine, you got to save the guy. You can't just keep plugging the bullet holes. The Rangers are dead. There is no resuscitating this team. They are beyond dead. Some guys are having nice counting stat seasons. It's good for Zibanejad's morale after how bad last year was. He's putting up a decent counting stat year. Great. Are we trying to win or no? Because if we're not trying to win, that's fine. We can take 2 years. We can try and get Gavin McKenna or whatever prospect you want. But at that point, and this is the big thing for me, Fox is 27, turning 28. Shesterkin just turned 30. If we're going to flush 2 years down the toilet to retool because the GM messed up so bad the last 2 years, at that point, are you still even going to be a contender around those guys? Zibanejad's going to be 35. JT Miller's going to be 35. Do you really think you can compete with 35-year-old Zibanejad and JT Miller, but whatever the rest of the team looks like, God forbid? If you trade Trocheck, you trade Panarin. Who's playing on this team other than maybe Will Cooley, Gabe Perreault? I know Lafreniere's name has been out there a little bit the last week or so, but who's going to be on this team? And that's why
I saw a Lafrenière for Shane Wright deal floated out. Like that's how far we've fallen.
Shane Wright's 3-4 years younger, so at least you could sell me on that. I don't think it's a good idea, but you could sell me on that. But the alternative, the Rangers think they can fix him. Okay, out. He's been here for 5 years, and this is where he's at. And you think all of a sudden you're going to know how to fix him? It's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous what this team says publicly about the guys on the team. We're trying to get rid of him, but we're going to try and fix him too. Stop talking. That's been an issue for the Rangers for the last year and change. Stop texting people. Stop emailing people. If you are so worried about curating the perfect locker room, maybe don't email every other GM or reply to every text from a journalist about, well, I don't know. I don't really like this guy all that much. That's part of the problem here. Yeah, look, as much as I dislike Trouba, he was right playing the circus music when they were in Anaheim last week. This team is a farce. 100%. They are a joke. And they don't have the self-awareness to recognize they're the joke now. That's the problem. Everyone is pointing and laughing at them. And Chris Drury's looking around. Are they laughing at me? Yes, the team sucks. You tried to perform emergency surgery on the team last year, and you brought in Carson Soucy and Urho Vakanainen as serious entries into trying to make the team better. That tells me you didn't understand the problem with your team. It's not just that they weren't that big, they weren't that strong. They weren't good enough. They could not score enough. The defense is too leaky. You are asking 4 or 5 guys to do the scoring for 12. This roster is awful, and there is nothing to indicate they understand that. Because if they're talking about a retool, okay, what are you going to get? You're going to get some prospect forwards or maybe some guys who have been in the NHL. Do you know how to develop them? Do you want if you get a guy like, look at what the Islanders got for Dobson. Emil Heinemann's having a decent season for them right now, but that's because he's playing with actual NHL players. He's not playing on a third line or on a fourth line. He's getting to moonlight with Duclair, with Barzal, with Horvat when he's been healthy. The Rangers don't do that. It took injuries to get Gabriel Perreault to play with actual NHL skill players. And that's why this is so frustrating and so stupid. There's nothing to tell me that even if you go get Shane Wright, even if you go get like an Owen Power, or we spent all summer talking JJ Peterka, if you get one of those guys in here, is he going to play, or does he have to earn his ice time behind Panarin and Cooley and Zibanejad and Trocheck? And while we know Trocheck and Zibanejad and JT Miller can't ever be taken out of the lineup or held accountable for mistakes, so we know we're already behind the 8 ball if we bring a center in, which is another issue. But all of this is so frustrating because this is people management. This is roster management. And this is the stuff as a general manager you have to have down. You can lack people skills if you're good at your job. If you're just rude to everyone, if you're constantly leaking stuff and the locker room doesn't like you, I mean, we can look at the situation in New Jersey right now. That it is very similar to what the Rangers are experiencing, where stuff that was supposed to stay behind closed doors got out. Everybody's feelings got hurt, and the Devils are dead too now. We know what you need to do to be good at this job. And you look at the Steve Yzermans and the Julien Brisebois and the Joe Sakic's, and you look at the guys who do this job well and what they have in common with the Rangers. It's not a lot. Not a lot you're going to find similarly in operations in Tampa, Dallas, to what the Rangers are doing right now.
And the follow-up to that is, it would be one thing if the Rangers were proactive in, like, let's say they fired Chris Drury, if they were proactive in trying to find the next Julien Brisebois or the next Bill Zito or the next Joe Sakic. What's probably going to happen is, if Chris Drury gets fired, the likely successor is Brendan Shanahan, a guy that doesn't have the level of success. Yeah, like, he was a great player, sure, and he was in Toronto for a million years, and all these things. But is he the guy that's going to come in and fix the Rangers?
In defense of Brendan Shanahan, what I will say, he modernized a lot of the way Toronto's front office infrastructure works. And that's something I was really adamant about in the thing I wrote a few weeks ago. The Rangers need a president and a GM. Those cannot be the same person. And Brendan Shanahan, as the president of hockey ops, as the buffer between ownership and the front office, sign me up. If you want to run something similar to what they had when Dubas was the GM and he was the president in Toronto, that's fine. The biggest thing for the Rangers, it's not even so much about the players. It is so much more about the infrastructure and building out this front office. I agree. When we talked about it a few weeks ago, Chris Drury became the head of player development in 2015. Prior to that, player development was a slash title. They had somebody who was in charge of like hockey strategy and management and player development. And then Chris Drury got the job and it became its own title. This is an organization that is 5 to 10 years behind where it needs to be and the way its infrastructure is set up. The reason the Rangers don't develop talent is because they don't prioritize it. They don't have a coherent strategy for it. That's why over the last 15, 20 years, all of the best players this team has had were either developed in college hockey, another NHL team, or over in Europe. That's it. None of the blue chippers have worked. And like the biggest thing for guys like Lafrenière and Miller, who are, they're NHLers. When I say Miller, Keandre Miller, they're NHLers. Keandre Miller is going to figure it out and have a 10, 15 year NHL career because he's physically gifted. His hockey sense hasn't ever come along, but he's a good enough skater. He's big enough. He's strong enough that he'll hang around. Lafrenière, his playmaking is good enough to sustain him as a regular at the NHL level without being a star. You look at all of the other guys over the years where they're talking about, well, he was a bust. Well, if everyone's a bust, that tells me either you don't know what you're looking for in the scouting process or you don't know how to refine traits once you get them in your building. Both of those are bad. Yes, could these guys have bad attitude? Sure, but you should have picked that up in the pre-scouting. In the development stage, not in the development stages, excuse me, in the pre-draft process, you get to interview these guys. You have time to sit down with them and get a feel for them. You should be able to pick up whether or not a guy is going to be amenable to development or spending time in the AHL, or if they prefer to stay in Europe. There are just so many of those little things when you add up the totality of the little behind-the-scenes nonsense stuff. whether it's Kravtsov, Lias Anderson, Tony DeAngelo, Brendan Lemieux. You can go on and on and on, where there is always something behind the scenes going on that is causing problems for this team. And when you're winning, those things stay buried. But when your team is bad, they get leaked because people have agendas to push. They want to get their story out there. 2021 went off the rails on like 6 different levels because David Quinn was not ready to be an NHL head coach when the Rangers hired him. And that season went entirely off the rails. And you deal with the repercussions of that. And you deal with the fact that your rebuild failed. You can say, well, they made 2 conference finals. Yeah, but not with guys from the rebuild. None of the pieces that were driving forces. Fox, you traded for. Shesterkin was drafted in 2014. Panarin's a free agent. All of the marquee pieces of that window from 22 to 24, they weren't acquired in the draft. They weren't in the 30-something picks you made between 2017 and 2021. Now, you got Will Cooley to show for it. Lafreniere's a guy. I guess technically Rempe's a guy, but you picked in the top 20 of the draft 4 years in a row in the first round, and you have nothing to show for it.
And that's an indictment on the players, sure, but how many cracks at a top pick do you get to, if you keep swinging on fastballs down the middle and you miss and you strike out, that's on you, brother. Like that, that's on the pitcher for giving you juicy pitches, sure. But also that's on you for swinging and missing at them. You're at the plate. You're the one swinging. You're the one that needs to hit the ball and you miss. By the way, you are swinging way too early, way too late. Like you are not even close. And even like, if I want to be like, nice about it, you hit a couple of foul balls. You don't even get on base with a lot of, with these like pitches that, a 10-year-old will be able to hit because they're so down the middle and they're so telegraphed. And like the pitcher on the mound is telling you, hey, I'm giving you a pitch down the middle. It's going to be really easy for you. Just hit the ball. And then you miss it anyway. That is how badly these drafts have gone for the Rangers. With Lafrenière, everybody would have taken Lafrenière. No one, no one is saying that, the Rangers should have drafted somebody else. No, that's not what I'm saying here. But you look at everybody else, and I understand. I read Vince's article a couple days ago where the Rangers really wanted Cale Makar. They really wanted Elias Pettersson in the draft. Yeah, and they in the draft, and they were trying to move up to get those players, and ultimately didn't work. Whatever, but surely you had a plan B, right? But the way that they drafted and the way that it all went down looks to me, anyway, that they listen. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but reading Vince's article and looking at how things unfolded makes me believe the Rangers didn't have a plan B. And that's insane. Yes, Cale Makar, obviously, for a variety of reasons, would have been a tremendous pick. Elias Pettersson, same thing. That's good that the Rangers have, evaluated those guys and wanted them drafted onto the team. Surely you knew that, I think they were 8 at that, 8 and 7 at those drafts, that there was a good reason. There's a good chance that those guys would be taken before you had an opportunity to draft, and all of your efforts to trade up to get them would be denied. You knew that going into the draft. So where is your plan B? Where's your plan C? I'm sure you had other guys in the top 10 that you were looking at as a potential failsafe. But the way that they operated, just from an outsider's perspective, makes it look like they didn't have that. And that is just it's a microcosm of what is going on the past, decade or so with this team and the way that they manage everything from top to bottom. Right now, the Rangers do not have a plan B. Why? Because everybody under the sun is, and me and you, I guess, all have no move clauses. There is no plan B. This is who they are. This is what they will be. And until something drastic changes, and again, like, nothing will change. Nothing will change until something changes. Like, that is the summary of what we've been recording for 40 minutes now. This is the summary of the episode. Until something happens, nothing will happen, and nothing will happen until something happens.
The last thing I wanted to touch on before we call it a show, the false equivalence to everybody pointing to Washington as being that's a retool that worked out.
They're not in the playoffs, by the way.
The first point I want to make, number one, they won a cup a couple of years ago. They have won a cup recently enough that they have goodwill, not just with the guys on the team like Wilson, Ovechkin, John Carlson, but also with their fan base. And most Capitals fans are pretty aware that team's not contending for a Stanley Cup. They had a great season last year, Ovi breaking the goal scoring record. That was their goal. They built a team to get Ovi to the goal scoring record. Now, on paper, they've made a series of pretty good moves. They've found value in different places. But the biggest reason why I am skeptical and people using Washington as the model, almost all of the interesting pieces they've gotten were guys who were in junior hockey for a while, college hockey, or Europe. Protas went back and forth between the KHL, the AHL, and the NHL before he came over, became a regular. And he became a regular 3 years ago. And now last year I would say he really broke out. This year he's established firmly. He's an upper echelon player. He's very good. Connor McMichael spent an overage year in the OHL, then 2 years in the AHL, back and forth between that and the NHL. Ryan Leonard, National Development Team program, then 2 years of college hockey. Rasmus Sandin spent 3 years in the Leafs organization, back and forth between the AHL and the NHL. Sonny Milano, AHL, Jackets, Ducks, and the AHL again before coming back. Trevor Van Riemsdyk, college, Chicago, AHL, Chicago, Carolina to Washington. You look at Charlie Lindgren and Logan Thompson. You look at Pierre-Luc Dubois. That team has been assembled largely with dart throws. And we know the Rangers do not have the appetite to take chances on guys. We have not seen under Chris Drury the team do that. Last year, they traded for Parson and they traded for Calvin DeHaan. They should have played them. You had them in the building, and you chose not to play them for no real reason. And there are people out there who say this dead serious. Well, the GM doesn't make the lineup. The GM can pick who's on the roster for the coach to make the lineup. If he has that much of an issue with how the roster is being put together, at any point he could have sent guys down to the AHL and said, no, you're playing those guys, and that's it. That's the end of the conversation. I am tired of the cop-out excuses for, well, the GM doesn't do that. The coach does that. Well, no. The GM, if he put the roster together in a certain way and it's not being played in the way he wants it to be played, can tell the coach, no, this is what we're doing. Or I'm sending him to Hartford. You can't play him tonight. I even right now, you're watching it in real time. I pulled these numbers because I was curious what it said. So Morrow's played 25 minutes with Gavrikov. Not a huge sample, but 62% of the scoring chances, 70% of the shots on goal. They have 100% goal share. It's only 1-0, but still. 55% of the expected goals, 78% of the high danger chances. And that's on 6.6% shooting. You compare that to the numbers Schneider has with Gavrikov, where it's 45% of shots, 43% of shot attempts, 30% of the goals, 43% of the expected goals, 33% of the high danger chances. You have a potential first pair defenseman on your team in Scott Morrow. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be a first pair defenseman, especially considering they have Borgen and Fox ahead of him in the organizational depth chart. But with nothing to lose, you are getting .875 goaltending right now. Literally nothing to lose. You should be looking at these as preseason games as long as Shesterkin and Fox aren't here. Morrow needs to play. He needs to be quarterbacking power play 1, and he needs to get a run with Gavrikov on the first pair. Is he going to be good? I don't know. But he can't possibly be worse than Schneider. They're getting out to 2-1 at 5-on-5 with Schneider on the ice with Gavrikov because we know Schneider's not a first pair defenseman. We know he's not that guy. His puck skills are not there. His positioning is not there. But they continue to march him out there because Braden Schneider fits what the Rangers think a first-pair defenseman looks like in terms of size and skating. And it doesn't matter he can't play the puck. It doesn't matter the puck is a hand grenade on his stick. We have opportunities like that. I mean, how long did it take to get Perreault playing consistently with Zibanejad or Panarin or anybody that wasn't a third liner? It is so frustrating because these games don't matter. We've been saying this for a month now. The games themselves on an individual basis, they do not matter. Whatever happens tonight when they play the Bruins it doesn't really alter all that much. If they win, great. If they lose, whatever. They are not a serious team right now. And every game you allow to go by without giving Morrow 20 minutes a night, without getting Perot top 6 minutes consistently. Even I'm not even in on Othmann, but play the kid. Give him a chance to either. He's getting closer. He's getting closer to looking like an NHL player. And even if it's only to trade him, give these guys run. And that's the big thing for me. You want to have as much information about these guys as you can before you make decisions about any of them, whether that's to keep them or trade them. And every passing game you allow to go by where Othmann plays 9 minutes, Perot plays 11, Morrow plays 14, you're wasting valuable minutes you could be learning. I know what Vakanainen is. I know what Borgen is. I know what Susi is. I know what Schneider is. I know what Gavrikov is. I know what Fox is. I don't know what Scott Morrow is. Let me find out. You don't have anything to lose right now.
No, I totally agree. What the results of the Bruins game, the results of the back-to-back against the Islanders, right? The Pittsburgh game. Of course you'd want to win all 4 of them, but at the same time, unless you win every game from here on out, you're not making the playoffs. So what is your goal? What is the goal for this team from now until the end of the season? You have young players that you'd want to figure out what they can do. Now is the perfect time, like you said. Put Perot on the top line. Yeah, I was down on Othmann. I've been a little bit higher on him lately because he's shown a little bit more than what he has before. Put him, on the second line just to see what happens. And part of it too is, we talked about this before with a guy even like Jack Hughes, who wasn't all that terrific in his rookie season, but because he kept getting top 6 minutes, because the organization understood, okay, he's our best prospect, our best future player, we're just going to put him out there, have him make mistakes, learn from them, and get better. And that is how a lot of top players, unless you're, a guy like Matthew Schaefer, who just waltzes in and is immediately one of the best defensemen on the planet, which is insane for an 18-year-old. But, unless you're an outlier like that, it takes you a while to get acclimated to the NHL system, to get acclimated to playing against NHL players. These are the best players on the entire planet. The AHL is the second best league in North America, but even that, AHL players are tough to play against. Playing at the NHL level, there's no Nathan McKinnon in the AHL. Playing against Nathan McKinnon is something that you can never ever replicate outside of that's Nathan McKinnon on the ice. I have to defend him. I have to battle along the boards against him. How do I do that properly? How do I do that well? He burned me the first time I did it. Okay, so let me learn from that and let me try to fix that moving forward. That is how a lot of young players learn when they're up at the NHL level. So at this point, you traded Keandre Miller. The best return you got was Scott Morrow. Okay, play him. The season is lost. Play him. Play him with Gavrikov. Play him with Fox when he comes back. Just try things. See where he is in his development. Because, again, you targeted Morrow in that return. I think they got a draft pick, whatever. The main point was Scott Morrow. And your season is lost, and you continue to shelter him, play Braden Schneider over him, and just kind of keep playing this coy game of, but he's our prospect. But we don't know what he is, but we're also playing him 12 minutes a night. Because he's not ready. You don't know if he's ready or not. And I'll tell you what, Schneider's not ready for playing top pair minutes, but you keep doing it anyway. So you might as well put Morrow out there and just see if, one, he's capable, two, if he's making mistakes, if he's learning from them, right? There's what happens over the course of the game against Boston, whatever, they don't matter, but you have to give these guys that are quote unquote the best prospects in your system an opportunity to show you what they have. Because until then, they're just prospects that end up being 26 years old and they don't play, and then they leave or they become successful somewhere else because you didn't give them a runway to at least show what they've got. You don't know what they have, and there's no better opportunity than now to do it. And yet that's not happening.
Yeah, the way the Rangers should look at this, in all honesty, after you come back from that Olympic break at the end of February, you should be looking at that as basically your second preseason / training camp. You had Mike Sullivan here, whoever's going to be on the team next year that you want to organize this team around. You have that 15-game window from the end of February through the end of April. You need to be using that as your evaluation and your trial period. You really hunker down and you figure out what the team is going to look like next year. Because if you turn, Panarin into the Brock Nelson return, you turn Vincent Trocheck into a nice return, okay, that means you probably got a couple of NHL or almost NHL caliber players, and they're going to need to play. And you're going to use those final 20 games as an auditioning period, effectively. I mean, this is what we were asking them to do at the end of last year, where you have Perreault, you have Othmann, you have Berard, you had a couple of other guys in the pipeline where just play. The season is probably over, and down the stretch of last year, they were still coaching every game. Laviolette was still coaching every game like they were going to make the playoffs. They were running a short bench. They were playing Perreault 6 or 7 minutes a game, and they healthy scratched him and Othmann one point at the after one game because they needed to sit with the coaches who weren't going to be on the staff the next year and watch the game. But you get to a point where we have tried something for so long. The Rangers have governed their prospects a certain way for so long. They need to try different things. And I understand the reticence to throwing these kids to the fire, especially in what's a lost season where your veterans are setting bad habits and aren't really steering the boat. I get it. You got to give these guys burn, or we're just going to be sitting here having the same conversation next year about whoever happens to be expiring contracts and trying to figure out what the next version of the team is. It's very easy to become an Ottawa, Buffalo, Detroit. It's very easy to become one of those teams where on paper you've got a couple of really nice pieces. You can't figure out the supporting cast because you're constantly in a race. You're not giving young guys more room to figure it out, opportunities to figure it out. And it's really easy to become one of those middle of the pack at best teams. And the way the Rangers are operating right now, it seems like that's their goal, is be the 7th or 8th best team in the East, and then goaltending. That's all we got.
That's all they've been for a while now. And even when they were really good with Lundqvist, like the supporting cast around Lundqvist was never there. And we know that to be a fact and not an opinion. Why? The Rangers never won a Stanley Cup. That just is what it is. And Lundqvist was putting up video game numbers in the playoffs. He was standing on his head and then some. He was playing like it was, prime Hasek, prime Ken Dryden, all in one, and the Rangers still could not win because they didn't score enough.
And you watch them. That was what they wanted to do this year. They wanted to be a defense and goaltending team this year, and it worked for about a month where the underlying numbers are pretty good. And riding defense and goaltending, you eventually reach a tipping point. It is almost impossible to play perfect defense all of the time. It's not a tenable way. You have better courses of action. You have better paths to victory when you can score more consistently. And look, it'll be fun to watch Mike Sullivan try and do this with the Olympic team in a few weeks, where they're going to try and turn every game 2-1, 3-2, where the Tkachuk brothers effectively try and run this as a Walmart version of what the Rangers are doing. And it's mind-boggling to me, because you watch the teams that are winning now. Colorado is averaging 4 goals a game right now. And you have people telling me, well, offense doesn't win. You look at Florida last year. You look at Tampa the 2 years they went back-to-back. You look at Vegas. You look at Colorado. This is an offense-first league now. You can repeat defense wins championships to yourself all you want. You look at the composition of these teams, the caliber of players they feature, and the consistency in which they score. Vegas won the Stanley Cup outscoring opponents 66-33 at 5-on-5. They outscored opponents 2-1 at 5-on-5. Florida averaged 3 goals a game at 5-on-5 in the playoffs the last 2 years. Colorado right now is averaging 3.97 goals per game. And that's coming out of a week where they lost to the Flyers in overtime, if I remember correctly.
They lost 7-3 to the Flyers.
Yeah, they lost 7-3. I'm thinking of the Flyer game where Hathaway missed the open net. That was the game before that. But when you get down to it, you think about what this league is at and the types of players that win. How are you supposed to win with we've been making fun of the Hurricanes for how long for not being able to even win a conference final game, let alone a Stanley Cup? That's the ceiling of being a defense first team in 2026 is what the Hurricanes are. They're a good regular season team. They can beat teams a lot worse than them or that play a style conducive to them, like when they play the Devils or the Islanders. They can't even beat the Rangers. And we make fun of the Rangers for not being able to score, and the Hurricanes can't even beat them. And you want to talk to me about defense? It's ludicrous. And look at the defensemen they brought in under the guise of we're going to win with defense. Morgan, Susie, Vakanainen. I mean, come on. It's so disingenuous and insulting to your intelligence to have them tell you we want to be a defense first team. And these are the defensemen we're going to do it with. I mean, you look at Morgan and Susie's underlying numbers together. They're getting like 65% of the expected goals against them. They are getting smoked every single time they are on the ice, but we don't have any other options, so they got to keep playing. But I guess we can't play Morrow over Schneider because Morrow isn't old enough or American enough or tall enough or whatever. But I'm at a point now where what is the point? These games are miserable exercises to watch. They suck. They suck. They gave up 3 to San Jose in like 10 minutes.
That was it. That was the whole game.
That was the whole game. And they're 5-20-1 when the other team scores first this year. And we still are coming out flat as hell. We are still giving up those grade A looks. And I think it was Valaket who said it the other day after one of the games. There's an understanding here that when an AHL goalie is up, you're supposed to bust your ass a little bit harder because that guy is out of his depth. And the Rangers are leaving him out to dry too.
Yeah. This is untenable is kind of the best way I would describe it at this point. Like this is, FanDuel right now has Boston at -120 tonight, which I think is kind of low.
As a road favorite, as a Bruins team, that's like 2 lines. That's kind of crazy. But
they're -120. The Rangers are +100. So if if you're really feeling frisky, I guess you can. But the whole please bet responsibly. I would be, maybe call a number if you're thinking about betting anything crazy on this game today. But the last point that I'll make here is to wrap this up is it's just so infuriating and frustrating how we're through 50 games. We're through 50. I think the Rangers have played 53, 52, whatever it is, and there's just hasn't been much of any kind of shift one way or the other. The Rangers put the letter out, and they, the Chris Drury is hopefully aware of what's going on, and he wants to make changes, and Panarin's not going to get extended, and all these rumors and whispers about Trocheck and Lafrenière and all these guys. Okay, well, we're 53 games in the season, and the Rangers are the worst team in the league, and you have 5 games until or 6 games until the Olympic break here. Why are you waiting? What is waiting gonna do? And I understand it takes you to everybody can just boot up NHL and put make a franchise and have the computer trade with you. And I understand in reality that's not how that works. You need a second team. You need a relationship with a general manager to make a trade, to make a move to facilitate these things. But guys, it's January 26th. The Rangers are dead last in the East, and they're playing like they just don't want to be there. Something has to do something. Anything.
And all we've heard for the last 3 years is teams would love to get Trocheck. They would love to get Braden Schneider. All right, prove it.
All right, yeah. Go out there and trade them.
Go out there and turn them into something. Go get some assets, and let's get cooking here. The longer this stays, the more you risk apathy. And look,
well, it goes back to, by the way, with all the Schneider and Trocheck thing is, okay, well, you're doing a whole lot of telling me, but you're not doing a whole lot of showing me, which is par for the course with this organization for the past couple of years at least.
It's mind-boggling, man. At a certain point, they're pissing on your shoes and telling you it's raining. They keep expecting you to show up, pay $110 per ticket per person, $18 a beer, $26 for a cheeseburger and fries. I mean, we've reached a tipping point where I went a few weeks ago when they played Seattle. And one of the real tells that the Rangers are bad is that it's a lot of European tourists because they get those tickets lumped into their travel package effectively. And there was a lot of people speaking Swedish and Russian sitting around me at the game. So I'm starting to think we're reaching that tipping point. The secondary ticket market is kind of your bellwether. A lot of games, 100, 110. It's pretty low for what the Rangers have been over the last 5 years or so. So I think the court of public opinion is strongly going in one direction. It's simply a matter of if it matters, and we're going to find out by the end of this year if it matters or not, because there's a pretty vocal contingent of the public now that is adamant what's going on right now is not working, and they would like to see changes, and we've yet to see any changes. So that'll do it for this week's edition of Liberty Blue. Thank you so much to everyone who made Liberty Blue their first listen of the day. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast, leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify, subscribe over on YouTube.
Later.